American tariffs have dealt a blow to Canadian auto manufacturing, and the Canadian government is striking deals with other countries. Canada is dropping the 100% duty on Chinese EVs and is allowing about 50,000 vehicles into the country at a tariff rate of 6.1%. This is a dramatic shift from just a few years ago. Up until 2024, Canada had accepted Chinese vehicles of any kind at that same 6.1% tariff rate. But in 2024, following in the footsteps of the US, it raised the duty on Chinese EVs to effectively 106%. In exchange for reducing the duty, China said it would reduce its tariffs on Canadian canola oil. But in addition, the deal aims to create joint ventures between China and Canada that will generate jobs for Canadian workers and help build out the country's EV supply chain. Canada's auto manufacturing sector has been shrinking for about the last quarter century, from around 3 million units in 2000 to 1.3 million in 2025. The introduction of the US tariffs has accelerated the decline. China is not the only country Canada is striking deals with. It also signed a memorandum of understanding with Korea on clean vehicle manufacturing. In early February, the Canadian government released a new automotive strategy for the country. It restored the $5,000 federal credit for electric vehicles, which had run out of money in 2025. The government also plans to offer tax credits for manufacturers in the country. But experts say that if Canada's relationship with the US doesn't improve, it's unclear if international automakers are going to want to invest in a country when it doesn't have access to the US market. Domestic car sales in Canada are only 1.8 to 2 million units a year. New car sales in the US are about 8 times that. Canada exports around 90% of the vehicles it makes, overwhelmingly to the US, and imports make up about the same percentage of the vehicles sold in the country. Under the agreement, 49,000 Chinese EVs are permitted in Canada initially. That number could rise to 70,000 in 5 years. Even if one Chinese automaker were to totally monopolize that, it still wouldn't be enough to justify the construction of a typical factory. The high fixed costs of manufacturing require that a plant make a minimum of 200,000 to 250,000 vehicles to be profitable. Given that the Canadian government is likely to allocate shares of the total 49,000 to different automakers, each one might only sell, say, 15,000. That would leave a factory with a huge balance of EVs it would be forced to sell somewhere else.
And where are they going to go? They're not going to go to the US. Maybe they're going to go to Europe. Maybe they're going to go to the UK. Maybe they're going to go to Mexico. Or maybe they're going to have a global mandate. Or maybe they won't do this. That's all.
Officially, the U.S. policy is a 25% tariff on non-U.S. content on cars imported from Canada. Effectively, that works out to about a 10 to 12% duty on each car. It's impossible to overstate how integrated Canada, the U.S., and Mexico were up until the Trump administration began levying tariffs. Researchers say that a single part, such as an engine or transmission, can cross these borders 7 or 8 times. But its decision to allow Chinese EVs has led President Trump to threaten a 100% tariff on all Canadian goods and services. Canada's deal with China will be a vehicle-sized irritant on trade talks with the US, said the head of the group that represents Detroit automakers in the country. American manufacturers make up only about 23% of Canadian auto production. Japanese makers, Toyota and Honda, make up the other 77%. Brian Kingston, who is head of the group that represents GM, Ford, and Stellantis, told me that there are several reasons for this decline. The cyclical nature of the auto industry, the disruptions from the trade talks, the retooling of plants for EVs. Kingston told me that Canada has everything the US needs to pivot away from China, including every critical mineral needed for a next-generation EV. It also has hydroelectric and nuclear power for factories.